What was the relationship pre-93 between Israel and Iran?
Well,
was there a commercial relationship?
Mostly, yeah, weapons and oil. So as treatise shows, the Ayatollah would be raging, I'm going to destroy Israel. That day, he would be taking a shipment of missiles from Israel, right? And so all that bluster was cover for their covert
Israel,
relationship.
Just to linger on a point,
Yeah.
because it's surprising to hear it. Mm-hmm. Israel was supplying Iran with weapons as late as the 1990s?
Yes.
Confirmed.
Yeah, getting along with them all the way up until the very beginning of Bill Clinton.
But not just getting along with, but sending them weapons.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure when the last weapons shipment took place, but certainly through the Iran-Iraq war, Israel was backing Iran. And this was the cynical thing by the Reaganites too, that they would give permission to the Israelis to increase support for Iran, and then they would switch and increase support for Iraq and play them back and forth against each other like that through the war.
That's pretty dishonorable.
It's pretty dishonorable indeed. But it also goes to show, though, that like all this crap about, fundamentalist Shiite Islam, well, I don't know. The Likud got along with the Ayatollah just fine, or maybe not just fine, but they kept their relationship all through the 90s. And it was the Israelis who decided to turn on them over, politics that were closer to home that really weren't about Iran as much as they needed a bad guy to point their finger at while changing the policy and negotiating with the Palestinians. But then, of course, a Benjamin Netanyahu fan assassinated Rabin in 95. And it was his successor, Shimon Peres, as part of this same strategy, though, who launched Operation Grapes of Wrath in 1996. Now, as I said, Mohammed Atta and Ramzi bin al-Shibh filled out their last will and testament when that began. And
because they were upset.
And by the way, their side, it's Lebanese Shiites who are being killed here, but there's the same difference to them. They've still felt shared solidarity with the victims there that they wanted to avenge. And then it was in that summer of 96 was when bin Laden put out his first declaration of war. Get this, it's called Declaration of War Against the Americans Occupying the Land of the Two Holy Places. Pretty subtle, right?
Yeah.
So, and then in the beginning of the thing, it starts out with a whole rant about not just Grapes of Wrath, but the Qana massacre. It's now known as the first Qana massacre because they did it again in 2006. But in 1996, it was actually Naftali Bennett, the future prime minister of Israel, was the artillery officer who called in a strike on a United Nations shelter and killed 106 women and children. And bin Laden went off about that in his declaration of war against the United States in 1996. Said, we'll never forget the severed heads and arms and legs of the children in Qana. And when Ramzi bin al-Shibh and Mohammed Atta read that was when they decided to join the war. So here are Egyptian engineering students in Hamburg, Germany, volunteering for a Saudi to kill Americans as revenge for what Israel's doing in Lebanon. Which, Tucker, is why they told you that the Taliban did it because they hate our freedom. Because they didn't want to get into why these Saudis and Egyptians did it. It's because they hate our foreign policy. The Taliban, most of them had probably never even heard of the New World and had no grudge against us at all. In fact, their government had tried to warn the United States of an impending al-Qaeda attack. And their leader, Mullah Omar, had been trying to negotiate bin Laden away since 1998 after the Africa embassy bombings. And it was even the CIA officer, Milton Bearden, who helped to run the Afghan operation in the 1980s, who told the Washington Post the Taliban were trying to give this guy up. They would say, geez, he's out falconing. We don't know where he is. Meaning he's outside of our protection. And if you guys were to kill him, it wouldn't be our fault. And then the Americans would say, we said hand him over. And just refuse to listen to, that's what they're doing, is handing him over, Yeah. Mullah Omar told, I bet Arnaud de Bourgrave from the Washington Times. I interviewed him.
I knew him well.
Yeah. So Arnaud de Bourgrave interviewed Mullah Omar in the summer of 2001 in Pakistan. And he said, listen, bin Laden is like a chicken bone stuck in my throat. I can neither swallow him nor spit him out. So you got to help me, or you Americans need to help me find a way to get rid of this guy, essentially. There's no love lost between those two. But they lied, and they pretended that it was the Taliban who had attacked us. So they didn't want to get into who were these mujahideen. So now, one more thing. So first we did all their attacks and their motives. Now their strategy was to bait us into invading Afghanistan. And this is, as we talked about, the letter between bin Laden and Mullah Omar. So we're trying to get the Americans to invade Afghanistan, and then we'll do to them the same thing that we did to the Soviets. Same thing we had helped them do to the Soviets. So that was the strategy. That was why they tried to knock down the World Trade Center in 93. That was why they hit the Khobar Towers. They didn't think we were going to run away crying. They were trying to get us to double and triple down, to invade, spend money. It's asymmetric war. It's a group of a couple of hundred bandits against the global empire.
So the U.S. dollar is not the bulwark it has been for our lifetimes. It's actually getting weaker. It's depressing, but it's true. Decades of Washington money printing, the misbehavior of the Fed has devalued the U.S. dollar to a point that you couldn't have imagined 30 years ago. Bad decisions in Washington are making you poorer, and it should make you a little nervous. Makes us a little nervous. The entire system is just backed by trust in the government, but what if no one trusts the government? So one of the results of this is that a lot of people want to invest some of their money outside the dollar system and some in crypto. They don't know where to start, though, and that's where I Trust Capital comes in. Their platform makes the crypto game easier, safer, and smarter. You can use it to pair the long-term tax benefits of a retirement account with the freedom to invest in digital assets. So there are potential big upsides here. They also offer secure non-retirement crypto accounts. I Trust Capital uses a closed-loop security system. So if someone gets your login, they can't send your crypto to an external wallet. And if you ever need help, there's someone right there to talk to, a real person in the United States, an expert at your service. It's complicated, crypto. It can be. This makes it simple. It's easy to set up an account. You can do it in minutes. You can start investing today. Click the link below or visit itrustcapital.com/Tucker. Use the promo code Tucker for an additional funding bonus.
How did they beat us? They get us to beat ourselves. They get and this is what's poetically beautiful and horrible here is that bin Laden's son, Omar, gave an interview to Rolling Stone magazine in 2010 where he explains, he says, when Bush was elected, my father was so happy. This is the kind of president he needs, one who will attack and spend money and break the country. He says, Bill Clinton fired missiles at my father and didn't get him. But now this is in 2010, now you've been in Afghanistan for 10 years and you still don't have him. America then was very smart, not like the bull that runs after the red scarf. So the point being not that George Bush's stupidity makes him innocent, it's that George Bush's stupidity and cruelty and corruption made him the perfect mark for a guy like bin Laden. This wimp with the cowboy hat, pretending he's a tough guy, is going to be very easy to provoke into doing what he wants, right? To get away with bloody murder on his end, which is what the Al-Qaeda guys wanted for our side to do, was to and look at our national debt. You might say it has worked some.
They're preying upon national character weakness or tick that Americans have, that I have, which is you assume all foreigners are kind of dumb.
Yeah.
And, it's a pretty sophisticated trap that they laid.
Yeah.
It's not higher math or anything, but it's like they were thoughtful in their attempt to destroy the United States. And we didn't give them credit for thinking through anything that they did. I didn't anyway.
And I got to tell you, man, there's a huge rub here too, which is one of the major reasons they were allowed, and I mean that in the generalist sense of the term, allowed to get away with all these attacks against the United States in this way, was because Bill Clinton's government was still supporting them. Took them from Afghanistan to Bosnia, then to Kosovo, and then on to Chechnya. And all through the 1990s, and I have a bit on this in enough already, but I found much more in my latest book, Provoked, because a lot of it has to do with the wars in the Balkans, of course, and wars against the Russians. And so it makes sense to me in a amoral, strategic sense why America would support bin Ladenite types and fundamentalist Muslims against the Soviet Union. But once the Soviet Union is gone, it seems like leftists are going to be more reasonable people than Islamist fundamentalists for dealing with, and when there's no Soviet threat to keep at bay any longer.
I never understood the hatred for the Baathists. I mean, they seemed like pretty reasonable, actually.
They were our guys.
There's that. Yeah. But also, if it's a choice between Assad and Jelani, I know that, Israel likes Jelani, so we're all supposed to like him, and as he murders Christians and Alawites, it's like, oh no, he's great. we're dropping our sanctions. He's great. But it just seems like, the kind of center-left atheist ophthalmologist from London is probably going to be a better negotiating partner than the guy who thinks he's getting the virgins, right?
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, am I missing something?
Yeah, it's the Bin Ladenites, they might not be reasonable, but they're not the Shiites. So that's what matters to the Israelis.
So that's the thing. It's like this monomania about Iran.
And about Russia, too. I mean, why were they so determined to fight the war on the side of the Muslims in Bosnia? It was to essentially establish American dominance, to reestablish American dominance in Europe.
To put a NATO base in Kosovo. No, I know.
And at the expense of the Catholic Croats and the Orthodox Serbs and Russia's friends, the Serbs.
Well, as always, we take this, we wind up abetting the murder of Christians. Like, that's not an accident. From dropping the atomic bomb on a Catholic church in Nagasaki, through the Balkans, through what's happening in Syria, through what's happening in the West Bank. Like, we're always against the Christians. And I know you probably disagree. I don't think you're a rabid Christian or anything, but from my perspective, none of that's an accident.
It sure seems to be the regular effect. I mean, at the very least, they don't care what's going to happen to the Christians when they do these things. They certainly don't. The world's only nonviolent religion, and they're the ones who wind up killed. Like, and then you have to like it, and you're a Nazi if you don't like it or something. It's like, I'm not playing along anymore.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.